You're listening to the Rainmaking Podcast, hosted by high-stakes headhunter, author, and professional speaker, Scott Love.
You're listening to the Rainmaking Podcast, and my name is Scott Love. Thanks for joining me on this show. And this is a special episode. No, it's not just that. It's an extra special episode because we have a close friend of mine. His name is Mo Bunnell on the show. Not because he's a close friend, it's extra special. It's extra special because we're talking about his latest book, Give to Grow. Relationships are the foundation of our long-term business success. If that's true for you, then I'd highly recommend getting Mo's book. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Mo, and we'll get into the book during my conversation with him. But if you're in the business of getting clients, if you're a rainmaker, I'd highly recommend listening to this show and ordering Mo's book. No matter where you listen to this show, go to where you have the show notes, and you'll be able to access that directly. We'll put that there as well as Mo's other links. But what Mo Bunnell does, he helps complex organizations grow by scaling business development skills across organizations and creating a growth-oriented culture. He's fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. As always, our show is sponsored by Leopard Solutions Legal Intelligence Suite of Products, Firmscape, and Leopard BI. Push ahead of the pack with the power of Leopard. And now here's my conversation with my good friend, Mo Bunnell. Thanks for listening. Hey, this is Scott Love with the Rainmaking Podcast. I'm excited about having my good friend and a repeat guest on our show today, and this is going to be a treat for you. Our guest is Mo Bunnell. He's the author of his latest book, Give to Grow, Invest in Relationships to Build Your Business and Your Career, and that's our topic for today. Mo, thanks for joining me on the show.
I'm excited. I mean, hey, if we can help your audience grow their book of business and their relationships, that's a good outcome. So let's do it.
Absolutely right. And before we do that, tell me this. I'm kind of envisioning somebody that can really benefit from our conversation today. How would you describe that person's role? Who are we really talking to today?
Yeah, I would say anybody that has one foot in the delivery of some complicated expertise and another foot in retention and growth skills.
Yeah.
They're completely different skills. So obviously like a partner at a law firm, a consulting firm, anybody in professional services, but it's also development officers for major gifts. It's account executives at big service-based companies, places where it takes 10 or 15 years to build up an expertise where you have enough value that you can help somebody in a deep way, technically, but also now at some point in your career, you got to actually go out and find work and find clients. That's a really interesting place to be, and that's who we help.
And one thing I've thought of as you were saying that, and I want to come back to the two things you mentioned, all the people that those people are servicing are sophisticated people. Yeah. And with serious problems that need to be solved, right? I mean, I think that's kind of the common element.
Well, just to build on that, and that's why it's difficult to have pure, and I'll do air quotes around this. I know this is audio only, but it's difficult many times to have pure salespeople. It can work in certain very large, complicated service-based businesses like healthcare. You really need a salesperson focus on that. But in most places where somebody has one foot in a deep expertise and one foot in growth, you can't have a salesperson because the buyer quickly figures out that they need to talk to somebody with technical expertise, and they want to talk to the person that's going to do the work as fast as possible.
That's interesting. That is the first time I've ever heard anybody explain it that way. Deep expertise, and they also have to have deep growth. And you're absolutely right. And I think that's what I think when I see partners that just don't have a book of business in a big firm. Because as you know, I recruit people that do have a big book of business. Some of them have said, I'm just too busy servicing my clients and I'm stuck. And that's the dilemma that I found. And so I think that your book, Give to Grow, I think that might provide some solutions for that person. They're looking at their watch all the time and they got pressure. They got a target on their back. You really need to grow your book, but I'm so busy servicing clients. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about the avatar of a top performer. Somebody that is a rainmaker. I've placed people like this. You know people like this. They're number one in the world in their sub niched expertise, and they know how to get business. What do you think sets those people apart, Mo?
Oh, well, let me give you a little bit of background because I think it's interesting for the difference between that top performer and an average performer. And then we'll talk about how they get there because I think this is really interesting. When we were writing the book, Give to Grow, One of the things that a question popped up just in my normal client work, I was getting ready to host a panel of rainmakers at a certain organization, big investment bank. And the person whispers to me and says, oh, wow, don't say this in the panel, but that one person you're going to interview, she's got a book of business of $100 million. I'm like, wow, well, what's your normal book of business? And it was like 5 million or 6 or 7 or something like that. I'm like, wow. So I got curious and I started calling up all kinds of people that do friends and clients that do partner promotion, that are CMOs, CBDOs, people that would know. And I said, hey, what's the difference between your top performer in your organization in a normal year and average? So not top versus low, top versus average. And the most common number I got back, Scott, was 10 times. 10 times. Top performers aren't a little bit better than average. They're typically 10 times or more better. And I think that's interesting to talk about before getting back to your question, like what do they do differently? Just to point out how different it is.
So are they doing 10 times more work than the average person?
No.
So that is what we're going to talk about today, Mo. So
exactly.
That's what I want to know. Tell me about that. What do they do? And tell me the secret. What is it, Mo? Give me the secret.
Well, it's more nuanced than one thing, but I will start with this. Section 2 of the book, Give to Grow, is we did a tremendous amount of research. Yep. And I'll skip over how we did it, but it was we had to do it because we couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
And we basically figured out what are the things that get in our own way based on thousands of client interviews? Or interactions in our workshops. So basically we found there's 5 lies that get in people's way.
Oh, tell me about this.
Yeah, what top performers do is they get rid of their own problems before they even focus on anything else. So lie number 1 is, I can give these to you, we can dive in deeper. Yeah. Lie number 1 is, I can't do that. At the beginning of people's career, it's they can't do all of business development. And at the end of your career, even somebody that's great can still be thinking, I can't do that on a narrow topic. Like, I can't talk about that new offering because we just hired a bunch of laterals. I don't know it well yet. I can't bring in the biggest deals like Suzanne does, things like that. So there's a solve for each of these, by the way. We can come back to it. Lie number 2 is, I don't know what to do. There's a solve for that. Lie number 3 is, I might do it wrong. This is where perfectionism can get in the way.
Yeah.
We can solve for that. Lie number 4, you've heard this one, I'm too busy. Yeah. There's a solve for that. And lie number 5 is, I'm going to look bad. That's what we say or feel. What's underneath it is fear of rejection. That's overthinking things, not reaching out when we know we should, things like that. What top performers do is they know those lies will creep in everybody's head, the beginner and the best. And what the best do is they figure out quick ways to get over those. They know what the solution is for each one, and they just act more and they're helpful more. And it's as simple as that.
They act more and they're helpful more. When you say they're helpful more, what does that mean exactly, Mo?
One of the mantras in the book people have liked is, it's always your move and it's always a chance to be helpful. So simple examples. I met Jane at a conference. I emailed the day after. She hasn't replied back. Well, the lie somebody can tell is, gosh, I don't know what to do. She didn't reply back. Well, the action is, it's always your move and it's always a chance to be helpful. Start a new thread and invite her to the webinar coming up that she might like. Get your dang self out of the way and act.
I love it. It's always your move. And what was the other part you said?
It's always a chance to be helpful.
It's always a chance to be helpful. That's great.
Another really strong example is, let's say there was a huge shootout, a big pitch, a presentation. You really wanted it. You didn't win. You get the email and you can see it coming. You did all these things great. All this was good. This is that. And you know the but is in there. But we decided to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
What do most people do? Oh, well, crud. I don't want to talk to them again. We didn't win. No, it's always your move. It's always a chance to be helpful. Ask for a debrief call. Figure out what you could do better. Ask them about their priorities and say, are relationships more important than this one opportunity? How can I be helpful the next year? Lean back in. Let them know you really mean it. It's like, if these are just 2 examples, but if we remember the refrain, it's always our move and it's always a chance to be helpful, we have a better chance of getting our own fears out of the way, leaning back in. And what top performers do is they do that more often than others. Yeah. And it just ripples through their entire network.
And I think if they do this once, so for example, I was telling you before we started, I was invited to a shootout. Oh, can you believe it? I didn't get it. Huh. Well, guess what? What did I learn? And does that mean it's the end of the relationship? No, I've got other opportunities cooking, And so, and I think that when somebody does it once, now they can replay experience and draw from that in the future.
Yep.
Building muscle strength in these things through action and execution. So this is really interesting stuff, Mo. Tell me about some of the other lies out of these 5. Let's start with number 4. I am too busy.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm sure you've heard that a few times, right?
Yeah. Just a couple.
Tell me about that one.
Well, it's great. I love this is the second time I've been on your show, Scott. And every time you and I are like 100% alignment, because that's the one I would have gone to next to. Yeah. So I'm too busy. So the downside of being great at growth is you're slammed all the time. There's always something to do. What top performers do is they don't let the lie of I'm too busy getting in the way. Here's the mindset. I'll give you a mindset and a move to use here. So the mindset, what top performers do is they do not view delivery versus origination, or doing the work versus the winning the work. If we use real simple words, they do not view it like an old lawyer scale, or like in an old school scale or a teeter-totter that goes up and down. The way people can fall into this trap is they feel like if I'm doing delivery work, I cannot do origination work. If I'm doing this, I can't do that. As soon as you believe that, you're sunk. So what the top performers do is they think, instead of either or, they think and. They integrate business development and relationship development with delivery. So I'll give you a study and a move. So that's the mindset. Here's the move. And with some research in between. Some research out of Cornell recently found that a face-to-face ask had a 34 times more likely chance of getting a yes than an email ask. It's hard to get your mind around 34 times. It was the difference in their study from a 2 out of 100 chance of getting a yes on email versus a 68 out of 100 chance in person for the same request, 34 times. So if we integrate business development with delivery, we can see the power of that. So let's say we're headed for trial. We're setting our strategy. We're going to go to trial next week. We're sitting there with that AGC that we're working with at a big client. We're slammed. It's not a time at that moment to bring up business development, but it is a time to say something like, hey, Suzanne, I have really enjoyed working with you on this. I really feel good. I think we got a great chance to get us even better outcome than the business thinks we can. I would love to get together maybe after we finish this thing up, maybe in a month or 2, fly to Chicago, take you to dinner. I know we've got our sleeves rolled up doing this work, but I would love just to hear more about your career, hear where you're going, and find some ways to be helpful. Can we set that up?
Yeah.
It took 30 seconds. But if you wait 2 months till after trial and then send an email, you probably aren't going to get a response. It's 3 months after that and 2 reschedules till you get the dinner. All of a sudden half a year's gone by and you probably had a low chance of success. If you integrate business development with delivery, with little 30-second asks in the future, you've set yourself up for success.
And what this is game theory, Mo. We're looking at those variables that contribute the most to the outcome, and how do we get higher probabilities of a positive result that bears fruit. And this is what it is, just do 2 or 3 things that matter the most to get the outcome, and boom, there you go. So, we could go deep into this in a lot of directions. I always come back to institutional impediments of law firms that keep people from doing these things. Do you think that law firms struggle with that? And not just law firms, but other fancy professional services firms that have a sophisticated offering to sophisticated prospects. Do you think that those organizations themselves can actually be the reason for their demise, or the reason why people don't do these things? What do you think about that?
I think that I'll be really clear on this, and I'm gonna hit this really hard, and I'm gonna be really direct. Average performers make excuses that their organization has things that aren't perfect. Top performers don't care, and they just keep controlling what they can control. Yeah. Example, the average performer says, our comp, and I'm going to be a little bit dramatic here, our comp system isn't aligned because, we're paid on an annual basis, but it takes 3 years to develop a relationship, so I'm not incentivized, blah, blah, blah. And I'm lathering it on pretty thick there. What a top performer does is they say, I don't care. I'm going to keep doing what I know works. I'm going to keep investing in long-term relationships, always my move, always a chance to be helpful. And I know over the course of 10 or 20 years, I'm playing the long game. I'm going to be just fine. And it's the think of every minute somebody says complaining about the system versus acting and being external. You start to pile that up. It's 10, 50, 100 hours a year that's different. The top performer keeps climbing because they don't worry.
I think one of the things that you said, kind of tying it back in, where face-to-face, you're more likely to get the work face-to-face. And just by focusing on this area, that's how you can get 10 times without spending 10 times more time on it, is focus on those leverage. Let's just call it a leverageable event, where we're going to look for leverageable events that can propel us forward more quickly and with more certainty in the relationship. I think that's how they can do it. And I like what you said about top performers don't care. I think that's true. I talk to a lot of people that give me those reasons and other reasons, and sometimes it's not the right platform anyways, and you have to move because of conflicts or whatever. And I found that when partners leave firms, there's usually one of two reasons: either strategy issues related to what you said, or more often than not, it's leadership issues. There's just no trust. There's no trust. I don't trust I've heard this before. I don't trust my leadership, and I don't trust my colleagues. And I've seen that before. But anyways, let me get back to this. I think the other thing that I see here is,
and Scott, can I go back on one
absolutely.
point? Because I would actually, maybe I need to refine something I said. When I said they don't care, that's not quite accurate. I think the way you said it was better, and I want to reconcile that for the audience. The top performer cares deeply. They care deeply about their clients. They care deeply about their firm. They care about the impact they can make. So if systems aren't aligned for them to do what they do, they act and they change it, or they leave. If it can't be changed, they find a different platform. To your point, I think instead of me saying they don't care, probably what I would have said is, what I wish I would have said is, and we can do this now, is they keep acting. They keep the locus of control. They keep the proactivity. The average performer complains and doesn't act. The top performer acts and makes change. And I guess that's probably a better way for me to say it. Anyway, back to you. I know you're on a roll.
No, that's okay. I've seen both of those. And one question I haven't asked me is, what have you done about that? Have you talked with the leadership about
that? Yeah, there you go.
Some of them, yes, I have. And I've decided it's just not the right place for me. I love my firm. I love my colleagues, but I need to go somewhere else. And what's interesting, Mo, is that I have seen and read the business plans of some amazing rainmakers, like top 0.5%. And they're just normal people and super smart. And maybe most of them, obviously well-educated people, have a really good pedigree. They do these things that you're talking about. They just can't rest on those laurels. I've made some significant placements with people with amazing credentials, and they're doing the work. They're actually doing these things. The other thing I see here, especially in a legal environment, is this: I might do it wrong. I don't want to look bad. And then the other one, I don't want to look bad. I think those two are really big, big rocks in the bucket, so to speak, in all of these things that we're talking about. Let's just talk about that one. I'm going to look bad because nobody wants to look bad. What do you think about that?
It's a big one. And I think you're quite good at this yourself because you've grown this incredible business. What's underneath I'm going to look bad, that's the symptom, but the real root of it is fear of rejection. So the solve for this one that we say in a short little quip that people can remember is think 10x, not 1x. What do we mean by that? If you have 1x thinking, you're thinking this next time has to be perfect. James has to, I got to get James to reply to this next email to go to dinner or whatever. If you have 1x thinking, you'll overthink it. You won't act. You'll delay. You'll make the email too long, or you'll just, all kinds of bad things happen. Because you're putting too much pressure on one moment. If you have 10x thinking, you're thinking, I'm going to reach out to James 10 times in this next year. Something's going to stick, might be 1, 2 things, but I'm just going to keep adding value. I'm going to keep offering helpfulness, and I'm not going to stop. And that lowers the bar. It lets you send a short email to invite in the webinar instead of this 1,000-word treatise that you had your mom review, for typos. It just takes all the pressure off. And I think part of the reason the top performers can offer helpfulness more often is they lower the bar and they just say, I'm just going to keep making offers as much as possible. I can do it faster. I don't delay. My outreaches are shorter. I'm integrating business development with delivery like we talked about. And they just, in the same amount of time, make more offers of helpfulness. And get back to your idea of game theory. I know I'm a former actuary. You're a former professional poker player. And we know statistics, card counter. Right. It's amazing. We both know statistics. They're just out there more often making more offer of helpfulness. And statistically, more things flow through to them getting hired.
Exactly right, Mo. Exactly right. So let me ask you this. In your book, you talk about the 4 gifts that you give to others. And I like the way you say this. And I remember where I played golf with a client of mine. He took me to his club, and he's just a great client and a great friend. And one of the people we paired up with was an executive of a private equity company. And the whole time, he didn't talk about his firm or anything. He dropped a little credibility statement. But, I have an idea. I actually have somebody I can refer to you, not in his firm, outside, that's going to benefit him. And we had a drink afterwards, and we're talking about that. And I'm like, that's just absolutely brilliant, giving. And I think that's the same mindset that you have, giving. And that's the theme I see among all successful rainmaking partners I've talked to, is that they don't have the chip on their shoulder. They know they're a big deal. Actually, some of them have the chip, but they know they're a big deal, but they still see, I need to give. And so tell me about these 4 gifts that you give to others. Tell me about these. What's the first one? The gift of attention. Is that right?
Yeah. In the way we say it in the book, that's exactly right. This is great because why don't you say the gift and then I'll say the version of that people can remember, and we'll just go through all 4.
Okay.
So, yep. Gift of attention. People love attention. According to some research out of Japan, for relationships, like personal relationships, the number 1 correlation to intimacy is attention. Like we can think of it now, like when we go home and talk to our partner and spouse after a long day of work, are we actually asking them how their day went? Or are we asking them while we're looking at our phone?
Yeah.
So it's a big difference to look in the eye. So what we can focus on is focus on engagement. When we're in meetings, if we can focus on engagement to the point where we're not focused on, we're on slide 10 of our PowerPoint, we need to get to 25 and we're ahead or behind in the talk. That's not focusing on engagement. That's focusing on a filibuster. That's focused on what we're going to say. We want to focus on, are they engaged? Are they leaning in? Are they asking questions? Are we giving them what they need?
Can I say something about this, Mo? I've seen the negative, the inverse of that. Partner candidate interviewing with the leader of the firm, 2 of them, and one of them, he said he kept looking at his phone during the conversation. And
not good.
Who knows what's going on? But that message wasn't conveyed. You're important to me. You're someone we want to have as a colleague. I think that's brilliant. I mean, I love that. The gift of attention, focus on engagement. Let's talk about the next one, the gift of understanding. What does that mean exactly?
So this is fun how we're doing this. So the version that the audience can remember is fall in love with their problem. It's so powerful. The gift of understanding is to be seen, to feel heard. Clients, man, they're getting beat up all day long. They're worried about that meeting at 3:00. They got to let somebody go at 4. They got to somehow run through the store and pick up their kids to go to soccer practice at 6. Like they want people to hear and understand them. So fall in love with their problem is a version of the same thing that we could remember in our head to say, we need to ask questions. We need to ask follow-up questions. We need to paraphrase back. So what you're saying, Jane, is this. Did I get that right? That is so powerful for relationship building.
That's great. Great. Okay, good. Let's go to the next one. And then the next one after that. And we're pretty much almost done with our interview here, Mo. The gift of wisdom. What does that mean exactly?
It's so great. So the mantra that we can remember is give them the experience of working with you. I'll tell you a quick story, and I know we're sprinting to the end, but there was one time early in our marriage, my wife and I had our 32nd anniversary yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, it was great. We had a lot of fun. So early in our marriage, like 2 years in or whatever, we still had tons of college debt, all kinds of stuff. We went to a restaurant that we probably shouldn't have been at. It was too expensive, but we did it. We're with with another couple to celebrate. And the sommelier comes out and offers a big bottle of wine. And we were already stretching the budget. Like we shouldn't have been there. We're like, sommelier walks away. We're like, we're not buying that. 5 minutes later, he comes out with a taste for all 4 of us. Scott, we bought the bottle. We even bought a second bottle. My point with that is it's so much more compelling to get a taste of something than to hear about how great it is. Yeah. And that's what we want to do as professionals. We want to just start solving their problem. So if we fell in love with their problem, we understand it. That's the prior gift. But this one is, we actually want to roll up our sleeves. Like, what's a half-hour session we can do with them to start teaching them about the issue and how they'd get started? How can we maybe meet with them and map out a plan to solve the matter that they're dealing with? Just start doing the work.
Yeah.
And by giving them that experience of working with you, it's so much easier and safer for them to just say, let's get started. Let's hire you.
I love the way you teach this, Mo, because you're reframing the day-to-day, what people should be doing, and giving deep, wisdom here, deep wisdom and perspective. I mean, sagacious wisdom right here about how you see it. If you just see it, give them the experience of working with you. Wow.
Yeah.
How can I find opportunities for them to work with me where there's no commitment, right? Maybe we sit on a board together or something like that. Let's chair a committee, whatever. They've had the experience of working with you. So the last one here, the four gifts, the gifts of clarity and progress. What does that mean, Mo?
Yeah. So that's the only one where we use two words, clarity and progress. And the idea here is our clients are slammed. They got 1,000 things going on, like we talked about. They want clarity. They want to know what's next. The second idea here is there's a ton of research out of Harvard. Teresa Amabile is the leader here in the research. It's absolutely amazing. And she basically finds that the happiest and the most productive people in the world are ones that celebrate incremental progress. We love to feel progress. So here's the mantra we can remember on this one when it comes to giving them the gifts of clarity and progress is, here it is, always make a recommendation. So a lot of times professionals can have that great meeting and then leave it up to the client to decide what's next because they don't want to look salesy. They don't want to look pushy. There's other lies in our mind that are messing us up, but we never want to fall for that. The client wants a recommendation. We are giving them clarity and we are giving them progress by telling them what to do next. Two great ways to make a recommendation. One, and these are exact phrasings people can use. They can tweak and make these their own. But one is based on the science of authority. We tend to trust authority figures in times of stress. Purchasing somebody, hiring a new advisor is stressful. And the other one's based on the science of social proof. We feel comfortable doing things other people do. So the way to make a recommendation is, based on my experience, what I would say we should do next is X. That puts the authority figure in us. Based on my experience, what I think we should do is next. That's a little harder version. The softer version based on social proof says, this has been a great conversation. What most of our clients do next is X.
Yeah.
That's a little softer.
Great. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Got some Cialdini. You're channeling Cialdini now.
Oh my gosh, you picked that up.
I know, Bob. Yeah, it's great. That's great.
Oh yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Those are two of the 6 most influential factors in the human mind by Bob Cialdini. So yeah, Scott, we're always aligned. I
know. In different businesses, but we talk to the same people who are really interesting and really, really interesting people. So let me kind of bring our interview to a close here, Mo. And first, I want to thank you for being here again. And I want to have you back again. Let's go deeper on your book in a couple of months. I'd like that a lot. If you could bring our listeners 3 action steps, because there's a lot of information you've shared. There's a lot of information in the book, and I like the way it's really laid out. I mean, this is a logical book. But I found the overarching theme is emotion, where there's a lot of heart in this. And when you think about it, and I remember having first time I talked to a partner about it this way, I want to move, but I don't want to make an emotional decision. And I told him, I said, you will. I said, you want to make a safe emotional decision. Let's do the diligence so you can now feel safe in getting excited about the move. And I think that, Mo, you have a lot of heart. And I think, let's just admit it, there's emotion to how we do work. We want to feel good about it. We want to feel good about what we do. And there's an emotional context to the buying relationship and the serving relationship. And that's not bad. Let's just use that to our advantage. And just even the title of your book, Give to Grow. I mean, that encapsulates everything right here. So if you could kind of bring us to a simple point of 3 action steps, what are 3 steps somebody can do, they can take to really get started on this journey? Well,
yeah. Or even take their 90th percentile skills to 99th, even if they're quite advanced. So I'll give 3 things. One has a massive amount of leverage. We created a training that goes around the book, Give to Grow, and people don't even have to buy the book to get the training. So when you write a book called Give to Grow, you have to give a lot. We believe in that anyway. So the training, and it's 6 videos for me. It's tons of downloads, like super practical stuff, like the best 50 questions we've ever seen that help you fall in love with a client's problem. Like there's like almost 50 downloads. That's just one of them. So anyway,
okay, good.
That's at givetoggrow.info.
Okay, good. And we will put that link on the show notes for everybody listening. If you're in your car, go to the show notes where you hear this and we'll find that. So that's step 1. Go to Give to Grow. What was it again?
.info.
Okay,
and then massive amount of value, 6 videos, like just tons of stuff. Like that's a no-brainer because it'll just teach you so much more than we had time to cover today. So that's thing 1, givetoggrow.info. Thing 2, there's a table in the book, in the paperback or in the hardcover, it's on page 32 and 33, and it shows that the differences between doing the work, delivery, and winning the work, relationship development, aren't just different, they're exact opposites. I'll give you an example and then we'll move to the third thing. Like there's several rows on this, but like one is emails should be long and offer clarity while you're doing work. But when you're doing emails around relationship development, they should be short and offer help. Yeah. And this is like, there's a whole bunch of other examples, but the idea is you want to be able to toggle between which mode am I in? Okay. Am I working on something I've already been hired for, or am I trying to get hired or develop a relationship? Like an example on this email idea is like, if you're working on a transaction and you need 7 things to get the first version done, that client's going to respond. You've already been hired. Yeah, it should be a 1,000-word email and the 7 things you need by Thursday at 5 to get the first version done. But when you're sending a relationship development email, those emails should be 50 words or less. Why? Because 50 words is about what fits on one screen in Outlook on an iPhone.
Exactly. Wow.
So we need to be able to, that's really powerful. It forces you to be brief. So anyway, toggle that. The more meta idea is know which mode you're in. Am I delivering work that's been hired, or am I trying to get hired? And basically, if you do it one way here, it should be the opposite there.
That's great. And what's our third one, Mo? What's our third action step?
I'm going to close with where we started. It's really simple. Everybody remember, it's always your move and it's always a chance to be helpful. Yeah, so we need to remember not to blow in the winds of if the person replied or not, if we won the deal or not, if they attended the webinar or canceled. Don't connect yourself to the outcome. Think no matter what it is, if I'm thinking of that person, it's my move and it's my chance to be helpful.
This is great, Mo. Thank you for being here today. Congratulations on writing a good book, a very good book. Highly recommend this. And the thing in my mind as you're talking about this, thank you for the PhD level education today that you've given me on these things that, I mean, I do this every day. I'm like, wow, which mode am I in? Never thought of that before. How deep does this rabbit hole go, Mo? How deep does it go? It goes on forever. And so tell us, for those people that might not know who you are, tell us about the offerings that you have. What do you do that you'd like our listeners to know about? And of course, we'll put the link referenced before on the show notes and all of your other contact info on the show notes.
Well, I'll share that in service of the audience because we'll add some value here so it's not me blabbering on about myself. But the main thing that we do is help high-end professionals grow their books of business through building their relationship skills. So no-brainer starting point is obviously grab the book, Give to Grow, and sign up for that free course at givetogrow.info. But you know what? For your listeners, Scott, I'd even be willing to offer like 5 seats in our, maybe we do it first come, first serve, but we offer a marquee training class. This is what the top law firms, the tier 1 management consulting firms hire us to do, the top investment banks. It's called Grow Big Training. It's 3 days. We do public classes in Atlanta every other month. So they just keep going forever. Usually cost around $5,000. It is I really believe it's the most elite training class for relationship and business development in the world. And why don't we say I know we're doing this off the cuff, but why don't we say for your listeners, the first 5 people that let you know, we just let them come as our guest. We waive all the fees as a thank you to you and your audience, and they can come check it out.
That's great. I'll put my email on the show notes also, and we'll limit it to the first 5 people that email me. We'll sign them up complimentary, Mo. That's very generous of you. And again, Give to Grow. How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen Mo in action doing exactly what he teaches. Thank you again for being here, Mo. We'll have you back on the show for sure.
Scott, I enjoy every interaction we have, so we're just getting started.
Likewise. Great job.
Thank you for listening to the Rainmaking Podcast. For more information about our recruiting services for international law firms, visit our website at attorneysearchgroup.com. To inquire about having Scott speak at your next convention, conference, sales meeting, or executive retreat, visit the rainmakingpodcast.com.